Hey everyone, and welcome to the You vs. Mind podcast. My name is Jack Leake, and I am super excited that out of all the podcasts you had to choose from, you chose this one, and you won't regret it. Here on You vs. Mind, we dive into the heart of the mental battle and provide you with effective strategies to fight, face-to-face, the things like stress and anxiety that plague us all, as well as looking into the root of the issue and digging up testimonies and stories from people and their bout with these trials. It is time to escape the lies we tell ourselves and take back what is ours. And my job is to make sure you don't do it alone. Are you ready? So I'd like to start off today's episode with a story I hope you can connect with, and I think it would really benefit the rest of this episode if I laid this out to you. So I have a buddy of mine, and we've been close friends really our whole lives, and we know some of the personal things about each other's lives, and one particular thing that he had always struggled with and come to me for help was anxiety. He had always been involved in performance-based activities, like sports, and in high school and into college, he got involved with broadcasting and radio broadcasting, and in college now he does sports broadcasting for his school, and he had always gotten anxiety about those things, and very understandable. You know, you're performing live in front of an audience, and, you know, if you mess up or anything happens, you know, people see it. So it's understandable to be nervous about that, but this is something my friend always struggled with. And so there was a particular morning where he had I believe it was a football broadcast in the afternoon, and I woke up that morning with a big long text from him, and it was just, essentially what he was saying was, "Hey Jack, this morning I'm feeling pretty severe anxiety. I woke up, I knew I had the broadcast, the broadcast was that afternoon, and it was in the morning he texted me this, and he was just saying, I feel overwhelmed with this fear, this anxiety. It's taken over my body." So I sent him back all the positive remarks I could think of, you know, hoping that any of them could help, trying to be the best friend I could be. And then I didn't hear back from him. And I thought it was strange, but that night he gave me a call, and he walked me through his day. And this is kind of what it sounded like, from his perspective. He said, "Jack, I had so much dead time in between when I texted you that morning and before I had to be at the game. Therefore, for about 3 hours that morning, my mind had so many things to chew on, and none of them were positive. All my mind thought about was the game. Am I going to mess up? Am I going to get anxious?" All these things were just churning in his mind. And it's very understandable. You know, listening to this, I thought, man, that makes sense. You know, it's relatable. That is understandable as to why your mind would want to do that in these times. But it got really interesting. As he kept walking me through his day, it got more and more intense. He said, once I put my suit on, it got worse. They had to wear a suit because he's on camera for the broadcast. And he said, once I put my suit on, it kind of signified to my body, okay, we're doing this, the broadcast is coming, and the thoughts just snowballed, and the worry and the anxiety just increased as we were taking all these steps towards doing this broadcast, he's telling me. And then the crazy part came. It almost put me in tears when he told me this, just because of how horrible that position would be to be in. He said, I was on my way to the stadium, doing pretty well, in my suit, on my way to the stadium. I live about 5 minutes from the stadium. And he said, as I got near the stadium, I started to see the people there, the fans gathering, the players on the field off the edge of the road in the stadium. And the anxiety just punched me in the gut. I had my suit on, which signified the broadcast. I was nearing the meeting place for our class, which signified the broadcast was nearing. And all these outside factors and variables just peaked. And he told me that he puked in his truck. He got sick. The anxiety caused him to get sick, and he puked all over his suit, all over his truck, on his pants, on his tie, on his jacket, on his suit, you name it. He got sick. And that's the part that just I didn't know what to say to him. How awful would that be? He was 5 minutes away from having to meet with his class, and he's in his truck covered in vomit. And he went on to tell me he had always been connected with his mom. We know our family's each other's families very well, and he was always very close with his mom. And he told me he called his mom in tears, screaming, yelling, frustrated. He told me it had gone from anxiety to just pure anger because he was embarrassed. He knew he was going to be late to meet his class. Like, there's no way he does the game in an hour. His mom lives about an hour away. That was his hometown, and his mom went into superhero mode. His mom drove him a new suit, walked him through the process, just said, okay, take your suit off, get a change of clothes, and I'll meet you at the stadium. And nonetheless, his mom made it to the stadium, met him, he changed into a suit, went up to the press box, and called the game. And after he finished the end of that story, I had that smile on my face, and I just applauded him. He overcame that anxiety. He was able, an hour before the game, he was covered in vomit in his truck, shaking in anxiety and tears of stress pouring out of his face and just not knowing what to do. But an hour later, he was in a clean suit and up in the press box calling the game, and he said it went well. That friend that I just told you the story about, that was me. That story was about me. I know that might have came as a bit of a surprise, but yes, I thought I'd throw you for a loop. That story was about me. Indeed, that story was something that I lived through. That was me with the puke all over their suit, minutes away from the game. That was me. And there are many types of anxiety out there, and that's something we'll cover in future episodes, but I thought this would be a good time and a good story to kind of introduce you to me. And not just my hobbies, like fishing and hunting and listening to music, but connect with you and introduce you to me on a level of what we are discussing in this podcast, how I struggle with anxiety, give you something to relate to. I'm not perfect by any means, but there are many types of anxiety out there, and like I said, we'll cover those, but the type that I struggle with, I like to call associatory anxiety. And in that story, I told you about the football game day and my anxiety. My associatory anxiety was very aggressive that day. So what associatory anxiety is, for those of you that may not know, is when the brain starts to associate events, locations, objects, people, anything, smells, taste, sights, with anxiety. So for example, in that story, when I put on my suit, I started to get anxious because my mind associated my suit with calling the game, which was anxiety for me. My brain associated the drive there, seeing the fans, seeing the players warming up, with anxiety. Therefore, I got anxious. It goes the same to say with past experiences in my life where I had gone to a restaurant and I had gotten sick. So my brain started to associate eating food with anxiety. So that kind of has to do with the whole idea as to my reaction to anxiety and getting sick because of being anxious, because some people don't have that reaction to anxiety. Some people struggle to breathe when they get anxious. Some people sweat profusely. Some people don't feel like they can move. Well, my reaction to anxiety is getting sick, and that is kind of hand in hand with my associatory anxiety. My brain associates some of the different things I named off to you with anxiety, and my reaction to anxiety is getting sick. So just kind of to lay out my situation on the table for you and make it maybe more clear to you that that's what I struggle with. And those are the areas that I struggle in, and that is what I struggle with. So maybe you can relate to some of that, and maybe you can't. Associatory anxiety is so strong because the mind is so strong, and the mind loves to create images and retain memories of horrific events, kind of like a PTSD. A veteran, will have nightmares because of war and hear the gunshots and see the different effects that are war. And that's exactly what our mind likes to naturally do. Hold on to those moments. Even though we don't like it, it likes to hold on to those images. Hold on to the image of that suit. Hold on to the image of those players and those fans at the football game. Hold on to the images and the taste of the food when we got sick and correlate those things with different anxieties and different reactions to it. And that is exactly what the mind loves to do. That is why association anxiety is so, so powerful. So maybe you're listening to this and think, oh, that's what I have. I have associatory anxiety. That's exactly what my mind does. And maybe your mind does it on different levels or with different things or with different objects or events. And that's okay. The strategies we're going to cover in this podcast can still help you and can still walk you along or act as a crutch as you dig towards the root of your anxiety, which we will cover as well in future episodes. But for now, I just kind of wanted to stoop down on my knees for you and let you see my weaknesses. Let you see what I struggle with. So as we walk these walks and we talk these talks in these episodes, that you can understand what I struggle with and in terms of what anxiety I deal with and my reaction to it. So that's kind of a quick loop of associatory anxiety, and here in a moment we'll cover some of the strategies of how to tackle it. I hope you're enjoying this episode of You versus Mind. If you have questions or comments of any sort, please feel free to email me at jleake2015@gmail.com. That's JLEAKE2015@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. So a few strategies that I have found helpful, and some I may not recommend as much, depending on the type of anxiety or the type of reaction, rather, to anxiety that you have. And this isn't just for associatory anxiety. You can apply these if that's something you don't struggle with. Maybe it's a different type of anxiety. Maybe you don't struggle with correlating images and smells and tastes with anxiety. So whatever you struggle with, maybe these techniques can help you. The first one is called the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. Using the 5-4-3-2-1 technique, you will purposely take in the details of your surroundings, using each of your senses. The 5 senses, that's what the 1 through 5 numbers mean, and you'll strive to notice small details that your mind would usually tune out, such as like distant sounds or the textures of something, and try to ground yourself in those textures or in those sounds or sights. So the first one is, for the 5-4-3-2-1, what are 5 things that you can see? Look for small details such as a pattern on the ceiling or the way light reflects off of a surface or an object you never noticed. Try to look at things that you normally wouldn't see if you were just glancing. What are 4 things you can feel? Notice the sensation of the clothing on your body, the sun and the warmth on your skin, or the feeling of the chair you are sitting in. Pick up an object or examine its weight or texture or any other physical qualities it may obtain. What are 4 things you can feel? All of this is just grounding yourself. What are 3 things you can hear? Pay attention to the sounds your mind has tuned out. Because you're so lost in that fight or flight mentality and just lack of breath, you lose these senses, such as a ticking clock, distant traffic, or trees blowing in the wind. What are 2 things you can smell? Try to notice smells in the air around you, like an air freshener or freshly mowed grass. You may also look around for something that has a scent, such as a flower or a candle or something. I understand in a vehicle you may not get those things, but maybe an air freshener in your car, or roll the window down and try to take in a scent. Anything to just ground yourself and bring back your senses that you lose in the midst of your anxiety and all the pressure and panic on your head. And lastly, what is 1 thing you can taste? Whether that be carrying gum or candy or smelling snacks or eating snacks rather from this step, pop one in your mouth and focus on that taste closely. Bring yourself down to earth, ground yourself. And again, for all of you associative anxiety folks out there, like myself, some of these might not be beneficial, because whenever you're going through a associatory anxiety cycle, as I call it, your mind is looking for anything and everything to associate with anxiety. So maybe this might not be the best technique for you. Maybe worth a try, but if you try to maybe taste a piece of gum, your mind just think, oh, okay, this piece of gum represents anxiety now. And then that gum is represented as anxiety in your life. And so maybe just avoiding this technique, if you're a heavy associative anxiety person like myself, this might not work the best for you. But another one that I think could really help a lot of people out there is body awareness. This is a really good one for associative anxiety people like myself. And again, all of these can apply to anybody, so try them. Make them custom to you. Try them and see if they work. But body awareness is a grounding technique that I find very helpful. The body awareness technique will bring you into the here and now by directing your focus to sensations in the body. Pay attention to the physical sensations created by each of these steps. Step number 1. This is all about breathing and slowing down your body and getting oxygen back to your brain that needs it so desperately. Take 5 long, deep breaths through your nose and exhale through puckered lips. So you can even practice this as I read them off. Just take in those long, deep breaths through your nose and then exhale slowly through a tight gap in your lips. Place both feet flat on the floor. Wiggle your toes. Curl and uncurl your toes several times. Spend a moment noticing the sensations in your feet. Again, just grounding yourself. Clench your hands into a fist, then release the tension. Press your palms together. Rub your palms together briskly. Notice the sound of them rubbing together and feel the warmth that they create when the friction comes together. Reach your hands. This is my favorite. Reach your hands over your head like you're trying to reach the sky. Stretch as far as you can with your hands up to the sky and stretch like this for 5 seconds. And then as you exhale, bring your arms down and sag your shoulders and let them relax at your sides. I love that one because my counselor told me this sheet came from her as well, so credit to my counselor for these techniques. But whenever you have your hands up in the air, that's a vulnerable position. Your body, whenever you suffer anxiety and go through these panic attacks, if you will, is in a defense mode. You're tight. You're in a very high self-defense mode. Your body starts and your brain starts to go into like a survival because you think you're in a life or death situation. So putting your hands and arms above your head puts you in a vulnerable situation because if a bear was going to attack you, your hands aren't going to be up in the air like that because your body feels vulnerable. So making your body feel vulnerable can relay a message to your brain to help bring you back down to earth in terms of how intense the situation really is in terms of life and death. So that is a big one for me. And so try these techniques. I hope that they maybe benefit you. Try them. Rewind this. Write them down. Go over them. And those are some that have helped me. And I hope that maybe they help you. And I'm going to uncover one more flip side strategy for associatory anxiety here after this break. I hope you're enjoying this episode of You versus Mind. If you have questions or comments of any sort, please feel free to email me at jleake2015@gmail.com. That's JLEAKE2015@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. So one last thing I'd like to mention about the associative anxiety. All of these associations are negative, right? They're not good associations because the anxiety manifests from them. And then maybe we get sick, like me, or maybe you can't breathe, or maybe you are struck in fear and can't move. Whatever your reaction to anxiety is with the image or the event or the place or the people, whatever you associate with, it's all negative. But our brain has many good associations as well. For me personally, my good associations are my home. I love my home. It's where I spend most of my time. It's where I feel comfortable. It's where I'm around my parents. It's a place where my anxiety generally doesn't rise. It's a place where there are many peaceful factors, very many peaceful associations. There's really not many reasons for me to be anxious at my home. There's a place out in the wilderness, just outside my hometown, out in the woods where I like to walk trails. That's a good association for my mind. The outdoors, fresh air, that's a good association. So why don't we use these good associations in moments where the bad associations are creating anxiety? The bad ones are so powerful. So here's a tip to try to, the next time you're caught in a situation where the bad associations are really brewing, the bad thoughts are brewing, think of a good association in your brain. For me, it's my home, the wilderness, the fresh air outside, grass, trees. That's what that is for me. Go there. Go there. Even if you're in a trapped environment and cannot leave where you're at, try to go there in your mind. Or even if you're in a situation where it would feel awkward to get up and say, look, I got to go away for a moment, I'll be back. Do it. Self-care is far too overlooked. Take care of yourself. Let other people worry about themselves. Don't worry about what they'll think when you leave the room or you get up from the dinner table or you drive away from the event. Care about yourself. Care about yourself. Anxiety likes to make us feel guilty about what we do. Don't go there. Care about yourself. Go to that good association. Go find it. Get in your car and drive to a place where the fresh air flows and the trees are blowing, or whatever your association is. Go there. Calm down. Come back to earth. Go through these techniques. And then go re-invite yourself and a newly transformed brain to that situation that anxiety and those bad associations were previously trying to manifest. So go escape. Go get there and try to become more positive in your associations. So flip the script on those bad associations. You can overcome this. I hope these strategies helped you, these techniques, these grounding, breathing techniques, these verbal techniques, these physical techniques, whatever it is. I hope that you could take at least one positive thing away from this podcast and even relate to me. If none of these techniques help, at the least I hope that you can relate to me. And I hope that you continue to listen to my podcast. I hope that my vulnerability didn't scare you away, but more so welcome you in. We're all people. We all make mistakes. And I thank you so much for tuning in for the first episode here on You versus Mine. There's many more to come, and we're going to dive into a lot more, and I'm super excited about what we're going to uncover. Anxiety has no hold on us. Thank you for tuning in. This has been an episode of You versus Mine. Thank you for joining me for this edition of You versus Mine. My hope is that you are now more prepared to take on your mind when it attacks than you were at the beginning of the podcast. Podcasts on this show are weekly, so be sure and tune in next week for additional weapons to add to your mental arsenal. You can find You versus Mine on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I would love to talk to you and answer any questions you may have or just have a conversation. Again, you can reach out to me at jleake2015@gmail.com. That's JLEAKE2015@gmail.com. Thank you again for listening. Don't forget to subscribe, and God bless.